This conference will now be recorded.
And is the font size okay with you all guys? Is it visible even in the back? Visible? Yes, no, maybe? No? Yes, no? No, yes?
Yes.
No. Is this okay? And let's increase this a little. This is okay now? Okay, great. Any questions, guys, before we get started? Anything, anyone, before we get started? Anyone, any questions? Anyone, guys, any questions before we get started? So this is where we are. We are going ahead and creating a storage account. So let's go ahead and create one more. So let's say this is, and let's go ahead and create this out. Again, this is how I'm creating this out. And while creating this out, I am giving things like firstly the subscription and then my resource group. And then comes your instance details, meaning the name of the storage account and everything. So let me come here. And this is already taken. So the storage account name is already there. So I cannot go ahead and create the same one out here. Guys, can you please go on mute if you're not talking, please? Hari Prasad, can you please go on mute? I'm getting echo from your end. Naveen, can you please switch off your camera? We don't need your camera out here. So can you please switch it off? Naveen, I'm talking to you. Can you please switch off your camera, please? And please go on mute. Thank you. All right. So right now, this name is already taken. So let's go ahead and change this name to 001, something unique out here. And just scroll down and I'll just say any region out here. Let's say something like ECS2. Or let's do one thing. Let's say, let's see this. Let's do Canada East, a different region out here. Let's come down and I want to create the storage account in ZRS. And I don't see the option out here. I only see GRS and I only see LRS out here. These are the two options that I'm able to see out here. Meaning, zone redundancy is not available in all the Azure regions. That's the reason. If you go here into the locations, into the regions out here, there are two things Azure does. One, it says recommended, which supports zone redundancy out here. The other, it says, you know what, other regions you can still go ahead and create it, but you'll have to compromise on things like the redundancy options and all these things. Reason being, we select a region from the recommended list, and that recommended list has a couple of things out here. And there's one more option that we did not discuss, which is called GZRS. Did anyone get an opportunity to visit this out? Understand what GZRS is? Anyone? Did you all read the documentation about this one, guys? About the replica? ZRS, primary and secondary. Yes, zones exactly. And in secondary, one zone LRS. So you have something like this. So if you go ahead and look at the documentation out here, now this is, let's say a relatively latest option out here. So if I just scroll down and if I just go into something like availability in zones, it is this. So you have a ZRS in the primary region and you have an LRS LRS in the secondary region out here. Again, availability is the same, 99.169s, but ZRS in the primary region, meaning what happens is that if one of the zones is down in your primary region, you still don't have to do a failover to the secondary region. You still have the zone 2 helping you out in the primary region as such. So to avoid latency, just in case if you have a failover, meaning just in case if you have your primary data center failing, you don't have to go all the way to your secondary region. You can still go to the second zone in your primary region and get your data. So the latency is in a reduced manner out here. Any questions still here, guys? Anyone, any questions still here? So I'm now picking up something called LRS. Can this be changed at a later point? Yes. You can flip your storage accounts from, let's say, LRS to GRS, GRS to ZRS, again come back to LRS and etc. This is allowed. This is an allowed property to change. The property that you cannot change is the name, the location, and the performance tiers. This is something that is not allowed to change. Even pricing will be affected. So again, how the pricing will be affected, to let you know that, let's go into, good question, let's go into something called, firstly I need to understand what is the pricing that incurs when I say it is LRS, right? So let's go into a link called Azure Price Calculator or Pricing Calculator. Microsoft gives you a pricing calculator out here in this particular link. I'll just post this link in the chat window as well. Guys, please post it in the WhatsApp chat. Please help me with that. And let's do one thing. Let's see, let's scroll down, and it's, I have something from my cache, so I'll just remove all these things out. Like I use a lot of, so a lot of products are there in my cache memory out here. So let's go here and let's say storage account, and I've added a storage account to my cart. I need to understand what is the pricing that is incurred out here. So let's scroll down, and let's say the region that I'm creating the storage account is East US 2, and let's say it's a standard performance tier, not a premium. And let's say I'll talk about what access tier is. Let's say the redundancy is what? LRS. So these are the three parameters I'm now talking about. Scroll down. It is around 1944 USD. Let's try to convert this into INR. 1477 rupees upfront. This is what you pay when you go for a storage account and you create that particular storage account in LRS. Sorry, monthly basis. It's a monthly cost. Yes, this is a monthly cost. So this is my monthly cost, meaning when I create a storage account, from this date, the calculation gets started. So I am in 22nd April, and so this is the cost that I need to pay on the 21st of May. 1 month, let's say, cycle out here. Let's change this to, let's say, LRS to, let's say, GRS out here or something like that. Let's come down. Let's change the redundancy to something like GRS. GRS has an SLA of 99.999 until 16 which is the highest. As and when I do GRS, do you see the monthly pricing is 4 times what I have in LRS? The reason being, Azure has to give you multiple copies of your data. Azure has to replicate this data over a secondary endpoint. And if your primary endpoint fails, meaning if your primary storage account fails, it will have to fail you over to a secondary endpoint. All these things is something that Azure has to take care of. Cost is directly 4 times than what you have to pay out here. Let's do another option called GZRS. Let's say GZRS out here. Slightly higher, 5,000 rupees or something like that. So LRS is the cheapest option that is available out here. And this cost can even be reduced, because right now the cost is not only for this, but also something, the capacity that you use. So I am estimating that I am using a capacity of 1000 GB. This is the cost that I have. But let's say I am using just 100 GB out of it. 219 rupees. So not only the replication, it is also the cost that you, or let's say the storage that you kind of pay for. Not only the storage, also the thing called transactions. What do I mean by transactions is that when I have some data into my storage, I will do some operations on that data. What do I mean by operations is that I as a user want to read the data. This is called a read operation. I as a user wants to edit the data. It's called a write operation. I can do either a read or a write, meaning even delete, all these things comes under the write operations in a broad class. So if you look at this, if I do something like, let's say 10,000 read operations, I have a cost of around, or if I do, let's say, yeah, these operations, the cost is around 0.34 per 10,000 read operations out here. If I am doing 10 into 10,000 read operations, the cost is somewhere around 3 rupees. If I store, the cost is higher. So if I come here, storage capacity cost is higher. So it depends upon your read and write operations and also the storage cost. It's a cumulative of all these things out here. And the maximum capacity, what I can do, what is the maximum that I can store here, guys? What do you think is 500 terabyte? It's a terabyte. So the maximum that you can store in a storage account is a 500 terabyte of data. The next question is that what is the maximum number of storage accounts that I can actually create here? No, it has a limit. It's not unlimited. It is, you do have a limit. You do have a limit in the organization. The limit is slightly higher, but even when you go for an organization, you do have a limit. The limit is decided by your subscription that you use. In my case, let's come back again. Let's say home. This is the subscription that I have. Within this particular subscription, let's see. It's not this one. Let's see this. Okay, let's do one slight tad out here because the screen is slightly enlarged, so I'm not able to, let's say, show this out. So let's come back and let's do something called usage plus quota. This is called the quota that is allocated to your subscription, meaning this will now decide what is the maximum things that you can create out here. Let's go here. Let's go here. Let's slightly increase the screen right now. This is good enough for me. And it is telling the provider is called Microsoft.storage. It's a storage account. And it is telling that in a region called East US 2, I can have up to what? 250 storage accounts in this particular subscription in this particular region. If I say one more region called, let's say something like, let's see, Australia. Now, Australia doesn't have a capacity in my subscription to go ahead and create this out. But usually what happens is that the capacity is very much regional basis, meaning West US might have somewhere around 250 storage accounts that can host. So per a subscription, I cannot go ahead and create more than 250 storage accounts, each and every storage account handling 500 terabyte of data. That is the maximum limit that I have in my subscription per a regional basis out here. So it's a hard limit, meaning you can go to Microsoft, talk to them and request for an increase. But again, depends upon case to case basis how are you using it and all these things. Any questions still here with this one, with the pricing structure of it? Let's come back again and let's do this. Let's create the
One
storage account.
clarification.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, so you are calling Visual Studio that says a subscription, but at the parent level, that classes Azure
Mhm.
DevOps at gmail.com is there, right? That is what Azure subscription, right?
This is not a subscription, this is a tenant.
Okay,
That's
then
the
okay.
parent. At a parent level, that's a tenant. Under a tenant, I
So
have a subscription with going by the name called Visual Studio Enterprise subscription.
okay. Under that, apart from that, you created storage account, right? Apart from the
Apart
subscription.
from that, not apart from that, inside the subscription, I created a resource group and then created a storage account. So this is your
Okay,
resource linkage. Tenant,
okay. Uh-huh.
subscription, resource group, inside a resource group, then a storage account as such.
Okay, our
So this
subscription
is the
name is
link.
Visual Studio, the
Yes,
subscription.
No,
exactly.
in our case, it is a free trial, right?
Yeah,
In your case, it's a free trial. In my case, it's a Visual Studio Enterprise.
correct. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. Now I'm clear.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
let's go ahead and start the storage creation out here. And there are a couple of concepts here that I need to cover. So let's take this name again. Let's go ahead, create this out once more. And let's go ahead and put this name here, change this number here, say it is 001. Now this is fine. No, that's 000, but I changed this name out here. So it will sometimes, kind of give me this error. Let's refresh the screen out. Let's put, say dev. So 001, not giving me the error right now. I can take any location, let's say ECS2 out here. Standard LRS. Let's say next advanced. I'm not doing anything out here. Advanced, I'm just going ahead and taking it the way it is. We'll come back to the advanced out here, but there is one option that I have to discuss here. which is called access tier. There are two things that is available out here. One thing is called as hot, the other thing is called as cool. It's selling frequently accessed data, day-to-day usage scenario, infrequently accessed data for backup scenarios. Let's understand this by an example, because again this becomes one of the important concepts that we do have. Now you are creating this storage account, let's say to hold the data for a company called let's say Chronicle newspaper organization. Let's say Chronicle, okay, or any newspaper organization out here. And what does this particular Chronicle tell you is that, you know what, this is your client right now. You're a DevOps engineer working for this particular organization called Deccan Chronicle, and this organization is telling that, you know what, I need, let's say, a device to hold unstructured data. You say it's a storage account, because still newspapers PDF files unstructured in nature, and a lot of newspaper websites right now are online only. You know, go ahead and read the papers online. So I have two kinds of customers out here. One is a customer who goes ahead, or one are the set of customers who go ahead and read the daily newspapers. Meaning today is 22nd, I would like to go ahead and read the newspaper of 22nd. So Deccan Chronicle is now telling me that, you know what, I'm giving you files, PDF files. Go ahead and save it in this particular, let's say, storage account, so that users will go ahead and, let's say, go ahead and take that files from the storage account, read it out. This is one set of customers, meaning these set of customers are very common to me, because everyday's newspapers is something which is accessed very frequently, very common to me. So I will say, okay, fine, this is one set of file which is commonly accessed or frequently accessed. There are another set of customers also, maybe let's say journalists and all these guys, who want to go back 5 years and, you know, want to read an article, let's say very old data. Again, this set of customers who are, let's say, daily customers for me, they do not want to go, because very unlikely, right, that you will go to, let's say, a newspaper website, go to, let's say, 5 years old and, let's say, get something. No, very you know, very frequently used out here. So there are another set of customers who also want to get archival data. This is what I'm talking about, data which is very old, but I cannot leave them out. I cannot say that, you know what, these don't exist, so I cannot leave them out. So I'm telling that there is also data which is, let's say, 7 or 8 years old. Even this is something that I need to accommodate. Even this is something that I need to account while creating the storage account. Now I come down to Microsoft and say, you know what, I have both kind of data out here. So how do you charge me? You know, when you do a storage account or when you create a storage account, what is the monthly charge that I need to pay? Microsoft tells that, you know what, there are two models in which I kind of charge you out. One is based upon your storage. Microsoft tells you that, you know what, if you have very large data, let's say terabytes of data, archival data that you have, and this data is infrequently accessed. This is being accessed infrequently, meaning the second category of customers who would like to go ahead and look at data which is 5 year old, very infrequent, meaning not that much, let's say, frequency for this one. Store it in something called cool storage. So while you're creating a storage account, create it in cool, so that the cost that I will charge you, I as in Microsoft will charge you per GB of data is less. The cost per GB is less, but if you are trying to access it, the cost per a transaction is more. Cost per a transaction, meaning per a read operation, per a write operation, is high. So now go ahead and now see how your budget fits in. Meaning, are customers daily coming and visiting? Chronicle says, you know what, no, it's not daily. It's once in a blue moon, once in a full moon, they're coming and, you know, kind of asking me for, let's say, the 5 or 6 year old data. I do have that data, but I have to pay something extra. Okay with that. I'm still okay with that. And now I again go ahead and say, you know what, I have one class of customers who are very frequent to me, daily newspapers. Microsoft says, you know what, for that particular customers, create a storage account which is hot. What happens in hot is that cost per a transaction, let's put it in hot, cost that is incurred per a transaction is less. But if you want to go ahead and store multiple, meaning heavy data out here, the cost per a GB of data, this is high, comparatively high. So now Microsoft is telling you that, okay, fine, which category do you fall under? So now Deccan Chronicle says that, you know what, I have two kinds of data. So you can say that, okay, fine, you can create two different storage accounts, one to hold all your, let's say, data, which is infrequently asked in cool tier, one for your daily transactions. But can I hold both set of data in the same storage account? Yes, you can do that. We'll also talk about that once we go inside the data. We'll see how you can do that, let's say, aspect also. But for now, I'm saying, okay, fine, this is a frequently accessed data. Something called networking, very important. But I'm not touching it right now because I need to, let's say, cover something called virtual networking and then come back to this particular concept. So for now, I'll just ignore this and I'll say next, data protection. There is something called enable soft delete for blobs. When Microsoft is telling it is a blob, it is nothing but a file for me. So when I'm saving some files out here, files, videos, whatever it is, it's called a blob. When you save it inside the storage account, it's called a blob out here. I will say enable soft delete, days to retain the deleted blob is 7. Meaning just in case if it gets deleted, I can retain it for a period of 7 to 365 days. This is the minimum, this is the maximum limit. 7 to 365. Just in case you delete your files from your storage account, you can retrieve it. It acts as a recycle bin. It will also see that how do you retrieve it and etc. I'll just go with the default number right now. Just go to encryption, go with the defaults. Tags. I can also go ahead and enable tags for a storage account as well. Meaning not only for a resource group, but for a storage account as well. I'll say company that this is using, and I'll say this is something like IRCTC. And I'll say review and create it out here. So all I'm doing from yesterday is that I went ahead and I now understood what is hot and cool, and I'm now creating the storage account in something known as hot, and I'll say create this out here. So let's go ahead, create this out again. It'll take a minute or so to have it created. Let me come back to my home page. I did the same thing yesterday. I already have the storage account, so I'll go into this one since it's already created. Same options that I did yesterday. It's LRS. Let's minimize this. This is in LRS storage v2 standard, meaning standard storage account out here, created in something called as an access tier called hot. It's a hot storage account that I do have. Now the thing is that this storage account is there for a purpose to go ahead and store the data, unstructured data. I want to go ahead and store all my unstructured data out here. Now how do I store it? How do I upload it? How do I save
Excuse
it?
me, where is that heart mentioned here?
Hot is mentioned somewhere. Just scroll down. It's not,
Here
let's say, displayed.
in this subscription
Just scroll
mail.
down then.
Uh, uh,
Hot
yeah, okay. Default access tire. Okay, okay,
access tier
fine.
hot. Usually it was
Okay,
coming here earlier, but now they
uh,
changed it and they put it here.
okay, okay.
Okay, so yes, so this is where I am now. So I have a storage account. I now want to hold my data inside the storage account. I need to create something known as a container in order to go ahead and hold my data. Storage account gives me multiple options to go ahead and hold my data out here. This is where I come into a concept called data storage. I can categorize my data, and there are 4 different things that I can do with this: containers, file shares, queues, and tables. Each and every service out here is for one particular set of data. And right now, I am interested into something known as containers. Let's go into containers out here to hold my data. As in when I click on this, it will ask me to go ahead and add a container. I'll say add a container. I'll say some name to the container called test container out here. Logs is default. It's a default container. You can't do anything about that. You cannot delete it and all these things. It will store your crashed logs and all these things. Just in case if your storage account is to go down, all that logs are stored here. It's a system container out here. So please observe this. I'm creating a container with a name called test container -1, and there is something called as public access level. By default, it is something called private no anonymous access. I'll just put it here. I'll just hold it here and I'll say create this out. So what I'm doing is I'm now going one more step further into my diagram. I'm telling I have a tenant. Under a tenant, I can have multiple subscriptions. Under one particular subscription, I can have multiple resource groups. Under one resource group, I can have multiple storage accounts. Under one storage account, I can have multiple containers. And under one container, I can upload multiple blobs. So files, blobs. So in a technical terminology, blobs. So under one container, this is the actual unit that will hold your data. Blobs, blob data is what I'm now talking about. How do I upload? Or this is the hierarchy firstly. Tenant under tenant subscription, subscription under subscription, resource group, then storage account, containers, and then your blobs actually come into picture. This is the hierarchy in which we go ahead and create resources. Now, the reason that I'm stressing on this is because when I'm creating all these resources using some kind of an automation, all these things kind of come into picture because I now have to decide which storage account that I have to, or which resource group that I have to create my storage account under. How do I create that particular resource group under this particular tenant? So I'll need to mention the hierarchy while I'm doing the automation. Go ahead, please. Even at a blob level also you can go ahead and assign, let's say, not a blob level, but a container level. At a container level also you can go ahead, yes. At a container level, the role assignment kind of gets end. That's the last point where you can go ahead and let's say give someone a role out there. Go ahead, please. In tables, you store NoSQL data in the form of tables and queues. Very rarely used service. Very rarely used. You club it with a combination called Cosmos database. There's something called Cosmos. For that, you use this particular service called tables. We don't do that here. So tables and queues is something that we don't cover out here because they are replaced by two different services called Service Bus and Cosmos databases out there. Yes,
Now, sir,
yes,
now,
I will cover
now
that out.
we are using
Yes,
blob storage, right?
we are using a blob storage, yes, and we are using a particular service called a container out here.
There are other storage types too,
Which is I'll
right, sir?
come down to that. Which is I'll come down to that. The other storages I'll come down to that. But let's look at what is a blob storage, and then we'll explain what is a other storage types that we do have out here. So I'll go inside the container that I created. So I'm going inside this container, and then I have an option to upload the blobs inside this container. So I upload, and it will now ask me what is the file path that I want to upload from. So let me go ahead, look at the files that I do have out here. Let's do something like this. And I have some files out here, some images out here, some random images that I've downloaded from the internet. I'm selecting all and I can upload all at once. I'll say upload. Now all the blobs are being uploaded, or all the files are being uploaded and being converted into something known as a blob, and they are being converted into something called as a block blob. That is the classification of a blob out here. So if you were to ask me, then what are the other types of blobs out here? You have three different types of blobs that you can store inside a container. One is called a block blob. Very, very, very commonly used service. Any image, any video, anything that you store gets stored in the form of something called as a block blob. There's something called page blob. This is used by a service called a virtual machine. There's a service called virtual machine, and that uses something known as a page blob out here to store a file called .vhd file, virtual hard drives. So to store those files, we use this particular service called as a page blob out here. Finally, there's one thing called append blob. You might have multiple services running in your Azure portal, and each and every service wants to produce some kind of a log data, meaning logs, crash dumps, and all these things. So all the log files are stored inside a storage account in the form of append blobs. So log files out here. And if you were to ask me what is the very most common type of scenario, block blobs. 99 out of the every 100 times that you do, you will do a block blob out here. You'll do a files type called block blob. And when we cover a virtual machine service, I'll go for something called VHD. And we cover something called monitoring, I'll cover something known as an append blob. Because at this point, it doesn't make sense for me to go ahead and let's say do a page or an append blob out here. It's a log. Inside that, you have append blobs out. It's a $log container, right? This is what you're talking about. A $log inside which you can store append blobs. By default, you do not have anything. By default, it stores logs. It stores logs in the form of append blobs. So it's just the type of classification that you're giving there. So let's come back here. Let's go into the test container. And I have so many blobs out here. And this is your question is that what is the last point that you can go and assign a role-based access? This is the last point where you can go ahead and assign a role-based access, which is a container at a container level. So if you assign someone an identity or a role out here at a storage account level, they can access all the containers within the storage account. If you want to now limit, meaning organization which do not have immense amount of budgets, I'm now telling that, you know what, one team will get one particular storage account, but my organization is coming back and telling, you know what, I do not have so much of budget. Please accommodate all the teams inside same thing. So I'll say, okay, fine. I have a storage account. I will create n number of containers, each for one team, development, QA, and so on, and then go at the container level and then give them the accesses. So when you are a developer, when you log into the, let's say your Azure subscription, you'll be able to see the subscription. You'll be able to see the resource group. You'll be able to see the storage account, but you'll only be able to see one container called a test container one, not the other container as such. So the role gets inherited in that way. So I am now here and let's say
So
I now go ahead, please.
yeah, so we cannot go beyond that container level. So we cannot give file specific access. Only
No,
it
you
is
cannot give
container.
a specific file. No, you cannot do a
Okay.
specific file as such. The last
Okay.
ends here. This is the end.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
So I have something known as a sample1.jpg out here. This is the file. Now here's the catch. I want to go ahead and share this file with one of y'all. Now I'm a developer or I'm a DevOps engineer. I stored some files out here. You're a developer working in some part of the world, and you do not have access on top of this particular storage account, but you need this file somehow. You're still my own internal employee. I want to, send this file across to you. That's the reason. This is where I was, and I'm just clicking on this particular, let's say, blob, and I have something called as an overview. Inside this, I have properties, and inside this, I have something called URL, unique resource link, meaning each and every blob that you kind of generate will have a URL of its own. Let's copy this URL. Let's understand how this URL actually looks like. Let's expand this notepad screen. This is how the URL is looking like. Let's understand what this is. HTTPS, accessible over the internet. Any link which has HTTPS out here, meaning hypertext transfer protocol secure, meaning it is accessible over the internet. The file is now a property which is accessible over an internet out here. Sorry, yeah, storage account name. This represents your storage account name dot
Tenant, right?
blob. This is the parent. Yes, this is the parent. This is storage account
Tenant. Oh, storage
dot.
account. Okay.
Yeah, it's a storage account, not a tenant. It's a storage account directly. Selling
Okay.
blob dot, sorry, storage account dot blob dot core dot windows dot net. This entire thing here till here is called the fully qualified domain name of my storage account. FQDN, fully qualified domain name. FQDN, fully qualified domain name. Meaning, if you were to ask me what is the FQDN of Google, I'll say it is www.google.com, a commercial website. .com is a commercial website. If you were to ask me what is the fully qualified domain name of IRCTC, I would say it is irctc.co.in, commercial India. In the same way, if you were to ask me what is a fully qualified domain name of your storage account, it is your storage account.blob.core.windows.net, which is a domain name which is a domain name which is handled by, let's say, Azure, which is a domain name which is handled by Azure out here. So Azure is now giving you a fully qualified domain name and is now telling this is the FQDN of the storage account. This is your container. The name of your container. This is now the name of your file or the blob. So adding all these things together, I am now getting the entire URL of my storage account or the entire URL of a blob inside my storage account. If you were to look the same thing for, let's say, a blob called sample2, let's say I have another blob called sample2. I copy the URL of this particular blob. Let's go into the notepad. Let's paste it here. Same thing until this point. Only thing that is changing is the name of the blob, sample2.jpg. Now this will become the fully qualified URL, or let's say the URL for downloading a blob called sample2. So let's go here, get this particular blob. And now I'm telling that, you know what? I gave you this particular URL. You're a developer in my organization. You are interested to go ahead and download one particular file onto your own local machine because you're doing some testing out there. So you need this particular file. So just copy this out, give you this, and I'll tell you, you know what, it's available over the internet. Please go ahead and download it out. So you go to the internet and paste this URL out here at your browser and say enter. You come back to me and say, you know what, this is what is the issue that I'm getting. The XML file doesn't have a style formatted and all these things, and it's telling error code. In the error code, the error is telling is that the resource is not found, meaning the blob that you're trying to do is not, it's not really found out here. And the reason being, my storage account, while I created my container inside a storage account, I gave the name of my container, and very importantly, I'm deciding something called the public access level, meaning how can you as a user access this data. And I created my container in an access level called what? Private. And in the bracket, it is telling no anonymous access, meaning someone randomly cannot come again, take that URL and go to the internet and download your blob. Random access is not allowed for data protection, of course, because this is a URL. I can just go ahead and share it to anyone, right? They can go ahead and access it out. That's the reason it's telling the random access is not allowed out here. That's the reason. If let's say you are a domain, which let's say something like google.com, which wants to allow users to anonymously access it, I will change the access level into something known as a container or a blob or a container. Let's say container firstly and say okay. If I change my access level from private to container, now the access level is here container. Let's refresh my screen. Now able to see the blob out here. I can go ahead, save this blob, download it, do whatever I can. I'll say copy, save and all these things. So I can do these operations out here. So if you are okay with anonymous access, now I'm giving you the option. Is depending upon the kind of website that you are designing. If you're okay with anonymous access, you can go ahead and allow the users to download the blobs over the internet. Where do we use this kind of, let's say, scenarios is that public websites. Example, you have a portal called Telangana Chalan. You have bike challans and all these things out. Even in the backend, they are using something like this particular storage to store all that images. Image is nothing but a blob right now for me, right? So all you need is just to give your, let's say, your bike number or your car number. You get that images. You can go and pay your challans and all these things out. Well, you put a car number and etc. It's not asking you for an OTP, nothing. It's just giving you a number, and they are exposing the data out there to the public, which means that the data of the container is sitting in something like or the data here is sitting in something like an access level called a container access level out here. But let's say I want to change this little bit. This is now for internal for me, for internally for me to use this particular data. So my organization tells you that, what, I don't want everyone to go ahead and access this out. I only want people whom I share particularly the data with, only they should be able to access it out. So I'll say, okay, fine, I'll change this access level to private. I'll say, okay. So I'm changing it back into private again. And if I now refresh, the second I change it to private, it'll say resource not found. So, but I still do not figure out how do I share this particular data with you as a user. So what I'll do, I'll come here into the blob. Instead of giving you the URL, I will give you something called as an SAS. You have something called SAS out here. Shared access signature, the full form of which is called a shared access signature out here. So let's see how it looks like, and let's see what I can do with this particular SAS out here. So I'm going here into SAS, and here it's telling, okay, fine, you want to generate a key for it. Yes, I want to generate a key, and I can control what an end user with this particular key can do. Can he write? Can he read? Can he delete my blob data? What he can do with this? This is something that I'm now controlling. Let's say I want the end user, meaning you're a developer. I only want you to, let's say, read this file. I don't want to do anything apart from this one. I'll say read. I can also give a start and an end time. I can say the key that I'm now generating is only valid for 2 hours, so that the developer can, let's say, go and download the blobs for the 2-hour period. And very importantly, I can give an IP address of a developer. What do I mean by this is that, let's see, let's go to Google, and let's say I have an IP address with me. So each and every one of you all working on your own computers will have your own IP addresses. IP addresses are unique. This is my IP address, which is allocated to my computer that I'm using right now with this particular Wi-Fi. It's telling it is 49.37.117 and something. So what I can do is that I can take this IP and I can put this IP here. Now it's telling an invalid IP and all these things. So let's see. It's a space, is it? There's no space as such. Let's see. Example, something like this, or some odd reason it's telling invalid. Let's see, 14.37.179.87. Let's do that. 129.87. Some odd reason it's not allowing me to do a copy out here. So what I'm telling is that the key that I'm about to generate can only and only be accessed from this particular system, not anyone else's system out here. So if I go ahead and do a generate SAS token, and let's see if my IP is right. So 179.87, this is what I think I have given. So 129.87. Okay, so it's a wrong IP address that I've given, so not a problem. But let's come back here. Sorry. And I have something called as a SAS URL, SAS URL, SAS URL. Let's copy it. Let's just come back to our notepad. Let's paste it just beside this one out, or just below this one out. Now this is a big string right now. Let's take this out. Sample1.jpg. Until here, everything is right. Both of them match until here. After that, you have a question mark. A question mark in, let's say, a website language is addition. So I'm doing a question mark, and I am doing something called as a token. I'm adding something known as a token. Everything from here is my token right now. It's telling SP permissions, special permissions out here. R, read, only read. You cannot do anything else apart from that. Then you have ST, start time, something like this, end time, because that is the time that I've given for this particular URL to expire, and then IP, and then the entire string right now. The entire string. This is your secret key to access the data. So if I now come here and take this out, let's come here and let's copy this entire, let's say, string, and let's go here. Let's try to access. Getting the error. Reason being, the IP address that I have given is a wrong IP address. My IP address is something like 179, instead of which I went ahead and given something like 129. So let's give the right one here, 37179. So let's go and do that. Let's change 129 to 179, and let's see if this is 87. Let's see 87. Great. And now I'll generate a new one out here. This SAS token is now a different one. Key changes. Do you see the key got completely changed? Meaning this is now a user specific. Meaning if I give you and you try to do, be a little smarter and kind of come here and change your IP, it won't work. It's very, very, let's say, sensitive. So if I go ahead, change this IP and try to use it, this key will not work. This key is unique per an IP address. So if I come here and if I now copy this out, now I'm able to access it. The reason being, my IP address is allowed here to access this. So now I get to decide which developer has the access to this one. And even if the developer goes ahead and shares this entire key to you, you won't be able to access it until and unless you don't come on that particular developer's laptop and then try to access this out. This is how I can now secure my data. I can now decide who can access, how can they access it. Meaning, can they read, can they write, can they delete, what permissions do they have. This is how, or this is what I can control using something called as an SAS token. So again, just to recap things around, yeah, it says only read permission. Sorry, you still have right to, you still have a right to copy it, because the right to copy, the right to, let's say, make a copy of it depends upon your browser. This is a browser specific, meaning you cannot come down into my storage account and kind of write or delete it out. You cannot directly come inside. Yes, inside the storage account. If you can, sorry, if you won't put the IP address, then if I remove this IP address out here, so i'll say I'll say generate this one out. Now the thing is that if anyone in this class goes ahead and kind of hits this URL, they will be able to access my data. Anyone in the class is now allowed to go ahead and, or any developer in my organization is now allowed to access this data. But even if you have this, and even if you come inside my storage account, you'll still be able to read my data, not write my data, or write, not delete my data, because the only permission that I have assigned you is a read, not anything else apart from that. So again, just to give us quick recap of what we are doing, we created a storage account. We added a container inside the storage account into a private, no anonymous access level, uploaded blobs inside it of a type called blob, then went inside the container, then went inside the blob, got this URL without a SAS, tried to access it. You're getting a resource not found error. Change the access level of a container to, let's say, a blob or a container level. Both of them are literally the same thing out there. And then I said, okay, fine. If you want to securely access it, we can then go ahead and generate something called as a SAS URL, and then go to the internet and then kind of access it. And in the SAS URL, you can mention multiple IP addresses, not one. If you have multiple developers who are trying to access it, you can give a comma separated IP address list. You can also do this out here. Go ahead, please. It's not mandatory use. I would say it depends upon what kind of a data you're storing out here. If it's a sensitive data only shared internally, then yes, you will have to generate an SAS every time. It's not a sensitive data, you're still okay with that, then change the access level from private to container and then you can give the URL. Yes, you can do that as well. Yes, any questions, guys? Any questions, anyone till here?
Uh, for example, if a developer has a read access at the subscription level, can he be
Sorry,
able
can you come
to
again?
read?
Sorry, if it's a read access on a subscription level, is that your question?
Yeah, yes. For example, if a developer or some user has a read
Mhm.
access at a subscription level,
Yes,
will
he
they be
will be
able
able
to
to read
access?
the data. He will be
Yeah,
able to
okay.
read it, but he cannot click this and let's say see what is there inside it. He will be just able to see what is the content here. That's it. Guys, can you
Only
please
content, but not
go on the
the
chat?
blob.
Yeah, only content. He'll only be able to see what is the content, meaning you'll only be able to see how many amount of blobs are there out here. But you won't be able to go ahead and let's say click on this, download it, see. No, you cannot do that.
Okay. So he won't be able to see that as well.
Yes. Sorry?
Okay.
Yeah.
He won't be able to click on that and see the exact thing what is there in that blob.
Yeah, you won't be able to click on this and be able to see what is there inside that blob.
Okay. Now it's clear.
Yes.
Does this can be used only for the downloading,
Once
or
you
the link can be used for uploading files also?
upload files, meaning I'll also talk about uploading, let's say blobs, meaning the question here is that can this URL only be able to use for downloading? Yes, this URL is only used for downloading because you have a read access out here. You cannot upload, you cannot write, you cannot do anything in my container. Then how can you go ahead and do upload operations? You can also do upload operations. We'll talk about that. I'll just take a couple of questions, but I'll come back to that particular area. How can you upload things out? How can you, let's say, delete things out and all these things? So
Okay.
your question is that you can, if you delete the blob. Okay. Yes. Okay. This is again, it is a public. Yes, it's a public URL, but that's the reason I'm telling you can go ahead and add something called as an IP address to make it private, only from one particular IP. IP address is out here. If I do an IP, if I give my IP, there is no way that you can go ahead and let's say access this out. So it's not a public access that way. Yes, you had a question. Sorry. Mhm. At an access level, as in like let's say there are 100 developers in my organization. I have sensitive information in my in my container, and I want to restrict the access. Is what you mean? So in this context, I haven't gone into networking yet. I haven't gone into networking yet because if you are talking about sensitive data, I need guys. Can I please have your attention here? Thank you. If I have something like a private data, very sensitive, then I need to put something called as a firewall so that everyone and anyone cannot access this out. That's where networking as a concept comes into picture. Security plus networking. So we'll look at that when you go inside networking, because if I now talk about networking, it'll be overwhelming a little bit. So I'll have to explain networking at a very, let's say, basic level, and then I need to, let's say, build on top of it. But any questions till here? Anything till here?
Kind of access
The link we have created, it is for IP, right? Can it be
I'm sorry.
created for a
Hmm?
user?
For a user, no, it is for an IP. So for me, if it's a user, meaning if you want to say it's a user, then please go ahead and do an IAM specifically for a user. If you want to go ahead and say it's a group of users who can, let's say, go ahead and access this particular data, you will have to go ahead and add role assignment. And let's say you want to give a role called, let's talk about blob here. Storage blob, data contributor, storage blob, data owner, storage blob, data reader, storage blob, data delegator, and all these things. So let's see something like reader. If you only want to allow them, let's say, to read the blobs, you can just go ahead and give them a reader. If you want to allow them to write and all these things out, so go ahead and let's say give them a contributor or something like that. So if it's for a specific user and not for an IP, then this is how you cannot do that. So the user has to log into your account, then download your blobs. If you don't want it to share it over the internet and wanted to share it securely using IAM. Yes, sorry, you had a question of me.
Hello.
Just give me a second. I'm just saying a question offline. Give me a second, Hari. Yeah, if you delete a blob, so let's do that. The question here is that if I delete a blob, then what is it? So I have a blob. I'm clicking on this. I'm deleting this out. And the reason I'm able to delete it is because I'm an owner at a subscription level. If you do not have the right access, you won't be able to delete it. Okay. So I'm coming here, deleting this out. Now, while I was creating a storage account, I had something called soft delete option. By default, the soft delete was 7 days, meaning I can still restore my storage, my blobs for 7 days out here. So if I delete this data, it will go into something like a recycle bin out here. If I want to restore the data, you, you see this show deleted blobs. If I click on this, saying this is deleted, just scroll all the way to the right, undelete. This is how you restore things out there. So this can happen, or this undelete option will stay for the next 7 days. After 7, it will go away. So it will permanently be deleted. Okay. Sorry, can he? He can download the blob. Yes. If it's a reader, he can download the blob. He cannot change anything. You cannot delete it. He cannot modify it. He can only download it and let's say, yes. Hard delete. If you want a hard delete, meaning if you just want to delete everything out there, let's see if I can do that. No, you don't have a shift delete as such out here. Let's see, come here. No, you do not have that. You cannot do a hard delete. But if you want to go ahead and do a hard delete, then disable your soft delete option. If you disable that, then it's a hard delete as such. But it's a little dangerous to do that. Shift delete something, right? So it'll go, bypass the recycle bin and it'll completely go away. But here you cannot do that. Yes, any more questions, guys?
Generally, what kind of
Any more?
access DevOps engineer will get in the organization?
I'm sorry, can you come again, please?
What kind of access DevOps engineer will get? I mean,
What
what kind of
kind of
role?
an access DevOps engineers will get is that being a DevOps engineer, I need to make sure to go ahead and create the containers, create the storage account, maintain the storage accounts and everything. So I will get a access which is equivalent to a contributor. Like, go ahead and do all of these things, but still I cannot go ahead and let's say do add users and all these things. I cannot do that. I cannot do a user management because user management is something which is more like an administrator role. But me as a DevOps engineer, I cannot do a user management. So I will most likely have a custom role which will allow me to go ahead and let's say play around with the resources in the let's say the limit that I can have, depends upon the organization that you are. But usually in the organizations that I work with, I got a contributor role here. I can go ahead and let's say do a contributor role as such.
Role is added at a subscription level, or what kind of resources we are handling based on the Dell assigned.
Correct.
Okay, subscription level will get the role, or how it is?
Based upon the resources that can you come with your question again?
No, actually, generally we'll get the role at the subscription level, or if I'm handling a storage account, then I will get the access for only storage account like that.
Usually as a DevOps engineer, I get a role at a subscription level because under a subscription, there might be a number of resources that I as a DevOps engineer is managing. So usually we get the roles at the subscription level as such. Again,
Contributor
this
only.
role assignment completely depends upon the project that you're working for, like how many resources that you need and etc. If you are, let's say, working in a client architecture, the client kind of decides what is the role that is assigned for you. Any more questions, guys, before we close here? I
Like,
want you all to
if
go
I
ahead
use the
and
storage account for one or 2 days, will it be
sorry.
charged for the whole month? So if,
No, you
for
don't be
example, if I
charged for the whole
created
month.
this, yeah,
No, you won't be charged for the whole month. You'll be charged for those 1 or 2 days as such.
okay,
So all the resources in Azure are hourly priced. You get a charge per an hour. So I use the storage account per an hour. So it will charge me only that particular for that particular hour as such. I think even that's an hourly basis. I think it's an hourly meaning. Even though you Azure in Azure you tell it's an hour, the actual charge is per a second and per a minute that you kind of use it. So it's drills down to that particular calculation. Okay, so I want you all to go ahead and read this, guys, about what is storage account in Azure. Storage account Azure. Please read the documentation of it. Like, what is the overview? What are the types of storage accounts and everything? And we do not have a class on, let's say, Saturday and Sunday. Like, so we don't have a weekend class session this time. Please make sure that before coming on Monday, go ahead and download the software called Microsoft Storage Explorer. Let's say this and say Microsoft Storage Explorer. This is a this is a cloud management software out here. It's a very simple download and install. Just download and kind of install it out here. And please come back on, let's say, Monday using this particular software out here. We'll talk about this software on how do you use this, why is it used, and all these things out. Okay, thank you guys, and have a good day ahead.